Last week I talked about how Fear and I aren't really two peas in a pod. I hate being scared, but I respect a good combo of terror and horror. I love reading Wikipedia plot summations for them, but I hate being scared. So someone had the bright idea to mention to me that Resident Evil 7, which Capcom decided to go balls to the wall with on the Fear Factor, was available in VR. Now, to put the gravity of the situation to scale, I once had to film a part where I played Five Nights at Freddy's in VR. And that's Five Nights at Freddy's, right? Five fucking Nights at Freddy's. A game that many people would not consider scary in the grand scheme of things. And guess what? I didn't even get to the first scare.
No, you know what? No. I win. Game over.
You can't do it?
I can't do it, dude.
You didn't even get scared.
No, it's the suspense. I can't do it. I can't do it. No, forget it.
I bailed. I quit. I told my colleagues to go fuck themselves. I won't get into the history of why I'm so easily spooked. There's more on that in last week's episode. But you can be assured that it took all the courage from my past, present, and future to even muster the nerve to consider playing Resident Evil 7. And no, I was not about to play that shit in VR. Now, however, I wanted to revisit a game that challenged me personally, but I knew I couldn't deny how important it was in contributing to the ever-changing gaming world. However, like a lot of horror games, I did try to play through it before, once upon a time. Back in 2017 when the game came out, the hype was everywhere, and despite my lack of love for the genre, I've always enjoyed Resident Evil games at the end of the day. Except there's one problem. I've never played the legitimately scary ones. With the exception of Resident Evil 4, which some could argue isn't, actually that scary compared to the original survival horror games that lifted up the franchise to its larger-than-life status that it enjoys today, the only other Resident Evil games that I had played and beaten by that time were 5 and 6. And, hey, 5 was still great. I think it got a bad rep, but it was perfect for co-op with a bit of action chaos here and there, and it was a great PSA on steroid use. 6, on the other hand, I mean, it could have been better. Let's leave it at that. Although, it did become a fantastic source of jokes and memes and yaoi fodder for my bisexual friends who were obsessed with this shit.
Chris, better put a leash on that puppy.
Not for me though. Jokes aside, 5 and 6 were a radical departure from what the franchise was known for in that it gave up a lot of the terror and survival horror DNA for something that just felt bloated with action-packed set pieces and sequences that carried solely by the strength of the established characters and the occasional fan-favorite newcomer. So booting up Resident Evil 7 for the first time alongside my sister, who I played 5 and 6 with, it clobbered us right away. Almost immediately we noticed something right off the bat. We were nauseous. Turns out the first enemy of the game wasn't a zombie or Mia jumping out at you from a room, it was the delicious kofta and rice that our mom made, deciding that, maybe now was a good time to start some really awful fireworks. Now I did not literally puke, but I wanted to. Boy, I wanted to, cause the cramped FOV and first person perspective alongside that shaky, grimy, grainy intro sequence made us literally physically ill at first. And it wasn't about to get any better either, as Ethan encountered a possessed Mia Winters, causing us to freak the fuck out. Capcom pressed on the gas even more as the introduction to the Baker family was enough to give me chills and leave me genuinely upset. Once it became clear that I wouldn't be able to shoot my way out of these situations and that I had to run and hide, I made it to the nearest save station and I uninstalled the game. But that was then, and this is now.
Welcome to the family, son.
Now by this point, Resident Evil Village was its own thing, and the internet went feral for Lady Dimitrescu to the point where at work, every Resident Evil video that we had put out had to somehow incorporate Lady D in the thumbnail or the video just to fudge the clicks up in our favor. I mean, the internet was a firestorm for this busty vampire lady, and I would have completely skipped 7 and got straight into Village if it wasn't for the fact that it was a direct sequel to 7. So, if I ever wanted to see the dominatrix of my dreams, I would first have to wade through the maggot-infested swamp of the Bakers. I was also better equipped this time around because in the years since I had beaten both Resident Evil 2's remake and 3's, and 2 in particular was very frightening to me. The constant stomping of Mr. X left me clenching my butthole for hours at a time, and after dealing with the tyrant himself twice since the game had 2 character playthroughs, I was feeling a bit more confident in my approach to something scary in Resident Evil 7. I did, however, properly empty my brain and imagine that I was approaching this game with the eyes of a fresh player off of a playthrough of Resident Evil 6's take on Call of Duty, so I could better appreciate the stark shift in tone and aesthetic in what was seemingly Capcom's triumphant return to the top of the pyramid and getting players to scream out curses at the top of their lungs. To help me, just like with Dead Space, I recruited my friends for emotional support in Discord, and I blasted my way through the game in approximately a week, I want to say. And during my playtime and discussions with my friends as I talked out loud my thoughts and shifting opinions, I felt a massive amount of respect for Resident Evil 7 and what it managed to accomplish. For starters, it was scary. Don't let anyone tell you different. Not that I imagine anyone would. The cat and mouse structure, the creative found footage VHS cassettes, the dynamics of the Baker family that seeped its way through the setting, they were all jaw-dropping and stunning. I had to tip my hat. Jack walking out of the wall was probably the only thing that didn't get me to jump, but that's only because I'd seen it so many times, whether if it was other videos by now. However, enough time had passed to where I barely recalled anything else, which meant that I was still yelling at my friends and pressing my eyes shut as the man attacked me mercilessly and seemed to just not f***ing die, ever, despite me ramming a car into him or chainsawing him into a pulp. The moments of reprieve in the game, as always, were the save points, or the safe areas where I could breathe and upgrade my arsenal with these rusty cool looking coins. Now at first I thought that the VHS cassettes would be another point of reprieve, maybe a freaky cutscene or two, but realizing that you actually had to play as the person in the recording was both impressive and frustrating, but not to fault the game. It was just frustrating because I wanted a break, dude. So here I was running away from Mama Baker suddenly and both blown away by the creativity of the game and pissed as hell because I was about to piss myself. Going through the game, it became a bit more clear as time went on that the entire plantation was basically one big gauntlet with each family member dominating a particular section. For you Jujutsu Kaisen fans out there, it was basically like being in each family member's domain. I was never allowed to feel comfortable, to the game's credit. Unfortunately for you, there's no recording, but my friends can attest that I played half the game clenching my entire body and squinting my eyes half shut because I kept expecting a jump at the end of every hallway. Most of the game, I was my own worst enemy. Turns out anticipation is the real horror besides, the actual horror. The pacing of the game, however, is really good because it basically lulls you into a false sense of security, and just when you think you're in the clear, you got maybe 3 to 5 seconds at best to process that, no, it's not your controller that disconnected, but it is in fact Mama Baker about to scare the soul out of you. I started to find myself a little bit addicted to this adrenaline. I hated it, but I needed more. Kind of like eating really hot Takis or hot chips. It's not a pleasant feeling. But once you get started, your body needs more. The final act, however, gets a bit out of whack for me, mostly because it felt a bit at odds tonally with the build-up. Once you make a somewhat inconsequential decision that only really affects the type of ending you get, but doesn't really change the gameplay that much, you travel down the bayou and start an act that just did not quite match aesthetically with the Louisiana backdrop. Overall, there isn't actually too much to complain about. It was, hang on. Oh no. I don't have much to say about this at this stage. They fucked him up big time. I do not like it. Probably the lowest point of this game, albeit a minor one. Resident Evil 7 really felt like a complete overhaul of the action set piece soulless Call of Duty campaign clone that Resident Evil 6 wanted to be. Sure, there's no campaign co-op or funny goofy memes to make it like there was in 5 or 6, and those games did have their own charm in a way, but at its core, it was not Resident Evil. Not even for me, to be honest, and I'm not a hardcore fan, so I couldn't imagine how disappointed it must have been for all of you guys. But man, am I happy you all have 7 now, because it really decided to just go mask off and come at you hard with that 1-2 combo. A new face, a new POV, and a new setting. It's more than just a fresh coat of paint, and I have to tip my hat again to all the positive things going on for the game. Now, unfortunately, it still is not my favorite type of game, and the reason why is because horror is just a little bit much for me, and the horror in this game was ramped up to an 11, in a way that was just really gross. Maggot-infested dinner tables, rotting body parts made your average zombie thriller seem quite tame in comparison. Despite the style and genre not being to my usual taste, I do want you to know that I really do still respect it, and even more, I'm happy for those of you that were disappointed in 5 and 6, because it really felt like Capcom took to heart what you all were hoping for, and I'm glad they delivered. Even if it's not for me, it's solid for what it is, and what it sets out to do, and it does it very well. If you are into terror and horror, then this has to be one of the GOATs, and if you're a little less keen on things like that like I am, hopefully you can still enjoy the game. But, and I'm speaking from experience, it might be more suitable for you to toss the controller to a buddy and have them played for you to watch the next time that you spend the night. Until next time.